is another episode of Community Connections airing on OROMIA11. As always, I am your host, Anna Orr, and today's guest is a very, very special lady. During the month of Women's History Month, we'll be highlighting her amazing work with Umoja Minnesota and Evolve Family Services. We're talking adoption, foster care, and all things kinship care. This episode you won't want to miss.
Manguddummaan qormaata ta'uu danda'a. Waa'een manguddoomoo haadha keessanii isin yaaddessee beekaa? Waa'een abbaa, abbeeraa, eessuma, adaadaa, akkoo, akaakayyuu fi abaabayyuu keessanii hoo yaada isinitti ta'ee jira? Dhimma manguddummaa fi manguddootaan wal qabatu irratti gaafii kamuu qabaannaan dhaabbanni Senior Linkage Line isin gargaaruudhaaf qophiidha. Dhaabbanni Senior Linkage Line dhaabbata State Minnesota guutuu keessatti dhimma manguddummaa irratti tajaajila kennu yoo ta'u, dhaabbilee tola ooltummaa kanneen akka tireelisii fi ejentiiwwan biroo wajjin ta'uudhaan manguddootaaf tajaajila garaagaraa kennuudhaan beekama. Dhaabbata keenya biratti manguddoonni kamuu tajaajila geejjibaa, tajaajila mana jireenyaa fi inshuraansii fayyaa argachuuf hin rakkatan. Gargaarsi dhaabbanni keenya manguddootaaf godhu kana qofaa miti. Nyaata manatti namaaf dhiyeeffamuu fi oolmaa manguddootaa ilaalchisee odeeffannoo barbaachisu manguddootaaf barbaaduun gargaara. Gargaarsi dhaabbanni keenya manguddootaaf taasisu manguddoota biras dabree maatii manguddootaatiif boqonnaa sammuu kenna. Odeeffannoo dabalataatiif 8-333-243 irratti bilbiluu hin dagatinaa.
Dhaabbata Senior Linkage anas na gargaaree jira, isinis koottaa itti fayyadama.
Thank you for joining me, Tennille, today on this episode of Community Connections. Can you please introduce yourself and talk a little bit about the work of Emoji Minnesota today?
My name is Tennille Thomas, and I am the Program Director of Emoji Minnesota under the umbrella of Evolve Family Services. We have offices in West St. Paul and Stillwater, and we are one of the primary programs within Evolve that assist families within the foster care and adoption arena. Emoji Minnesota specifically helps interracial families, families who do foster care or adoption through kinship, and we help promote solid foundations for Black children that are adopted within those homes and those dynamics. So.
Now, for those that don't know what Emoji means, can you talk a little bit about what that word means and how that kind of connects to the program?
Awesome. Well, Emoji is, of course, one of the first principles within Kwanzaa, and it means unity. So we are basically bringing together families and helping build firm foundations for those families, regardless of the backgrounds or the dynamics of those inclusive of the family. So I guess we are recreating the norm of what family is. So, yeah.
Now, you guys talk specifically about helping kids not only discover identity while they're at the camp, but also have tough conversations with parents. Can you talk about how some of that work actually comes to be?
So, the Umoja Minnesota is funded by the Minnesota Department of Health, first and foremost, and it definitely gives us a really good funding opportunity to present education, awareness, training, entertainment for the kids at camp. We have 2 camps a year right now, but we also have tons of enrichment and in-between programming for our families as well. And so with that being said, we really just are looking at ways to bring the culture to our children to make sure that they're continuing to be connected to community culture and their own ethnicity and positive personal self-identification as a Black child.
Now, I read on the website that you guys teach the resistance and resilience of Black people throughout history. I think that is so powerful. We see not only in our school systems right now with CRT being taught critical race theory, or I guess you should say the lack thereof. And with kids growing up in our communities right here and now, not knowing at all that we were so much more than slaves within our own community, within this nation and the world's history. Can you talk about how Emoji Minnesota teaches that resistance and our resilience throughout history?
Well, you are correct. We did not start with slavery, and so we do talk about the dynamics of kings and coming from kings and queens and being able to continue to present that understanding for our youth, of understanding that we do come from greatness and they are going to continue on within that legacy. And so we promote that positive self-Black identification. It's not that we don't talk about the component of slavery, but there was so much more prior to that. And we want to allow them to know the positive parts of who they are and where they came from and who they can be. It's also a way of kind of re-identifying when you think about adoption or foster care. You're not sure where you came from or the components of who you are if you were adopted as an infant or at an age where you don't remember your past. And so this really helps to bring connection with that within our programming. For instance, our theme is always tell me who I am, and then whatever the theme is for that camp. Our past camp that we just had last weekend was tell me who I am, collecting the pieces to my puzzle. And so collecting those parts of understanding maybe that you weren't aware of about who you were. You might not be able to know who your biological mother or father is, but there's so much more to that component when you look at legacy and understanding culture and ethnicity and just being Black.
How has this work affected you personally?
Well, I would definitely have to say that it being a purpose-driven position for me, over 20 years ago, I became a foster parent for the first time, and I have 6 children in my family dynamics. 4 are through adoption, and I also went through the foster care system in adoption and was emancipated. And so I know every person has a different story in their walk, and it's their personal story. But for me, I kind of definitely feel driven to be an example for the kids, that I walk the walk. I also feel like with the parents, I can express understanding to what they're going through, because I too am a parent that is dealing with or combating the war that our children are going through, with trying to identify with who they are, as well as I've worked within social services for over 25 years, whether it be positions as a guardian ad litem, intensive in-home parenting, remedial services, residential shelter. I've been a juvenile corrections officer. So I feel like I don't really say like on each side of the fence. I feel like I've been on each side of the fence and all around the yard. So I can kind of see it through the eyes of everybody that's involved within the dynamics of foster care and adoption.
And how do you feel that has helped you not only do this work, seeing as you're not talking from a place of unfounded experience, you have a real connection with what this journey has been?
I definitely, even talking with my team, we are a very small staff of 3, and I do believe that it's part of a healing process. It's part of more than just paying it forward. I feel like this is the job for me that I was created for, because I can say that and speak to the different dynamics of the positions, whether it be the kids, understanding how they feel, understanding how the parents feel. And so for me, it continues to make me feel like, that trials and tribulations, things that I've overcome, was definitely worthwhile to get to this point, to say and be an example to the kids that it's possible. That, for me personally, parts of my story that I've written and are published, I always go with the title of overcoming becoming a statistic. So I believe, I believe that it's possible to defy the stereotypes and the dynamics of what they say you cannot do, and the only real way to do that is to show them. And so
it's very true. Minnesota is one of the states within our country that has a large population of interracial adoptions. and with a lot of also international adoptions taking place. And we know that predominantly Minnesota is Caucasian. So how do you come alongside, Umoja Minnesota, how do you guys come alongside parents and help them with just basic needs with their children? You know, sometimes we hear that, we don't know simple things like we need to be lotioned every day. Our skin needs to be moisturized. We don't wash our hair every day or every week sometimes. Things like that, that if you didn't know, you wouldn't know how to take care of a Black child.
Well, those are huge components of our programming. We actually do present education for hair care and hygiene and culture dynamics that are different. Over camp this past week, our hair care presenter is from an organization called Tutus and Tennis Shoes, and they specify in teaching hair care and skincare, not just care, but the science of and why we do what we do and we don't do certain things the same within the different dynamics of culture. And the director of that program is very strategic in regards to saying, I can't just come up here and teach that if I don't talk about my cultural dynamics of that parenting's different. You know, if you were stereotypically to look at how a Black child was raised or a Caucasian child was raised and what your parent might allow you or not allow you to do is different. And so she kept referencing home training all weekend. And so even though she was talking about hair, we really appreciate the fact that we can implicate all the different dynamics of culture that we have. And we also took an opportunity to applaud the parents to say, we see your love for your children, and we see your eagerness to learn how to care for your children, how to see the different dynamics of the lotion and the hair care. Don't wash their hair every day, that it needs to be moisturized. The difference of how someone is looking upon you. Like when one of the most profound things I heard at camp this week is our DJ said to the parents, he said, I know that when you walk in the room, people look at you funny because they're wondering, why do you have this child? Why did you decide to take care of a child that didn't look like you? But he said, I applaud you that you did that because this child needs to be loved and cared for. And the fact that you don't look like them does not defy the fact that you can love and care for them. And he said, I as a Black man want to help and assist in providing you with the information that you need or that you don't have, or this being that positive identification of a positive Black man for your child, to say that there's somebody that looks like me that's a good person, and somebody that doesn't look like me that's a good person, my parent. And so we really want to build on that and build community within that dynamic. It's unfortunate too, like when Umoja started, there was a huge kind of I think it was a misunderstanding within the community. We are right now trying to rebuild and connect within the Black community, because it was, I think the Minnesota Organization of Black Social Workers felt like, are you promoting non-Black people to adopt these Black children? And that's not our mission. That is not our mission at all. What we are saying is it's going to happen. We live in Minnesota. We know that we're not a predominantly majority rule, Black state. So it's going to happen. We have kids here who need parents who need forever homes. And so within saying that, we need to give them the tools. We need to be the resource in the village around them. We need to help them build a firmer foundation for their children and be community with them. And so that's what we're saying and doing with that.
I think that's important that you just said we need to think about and offer them community. We know that it is a traditional practice culturally for us to foster community for one another. But if you are no longer a part of your community or have been put in another community that may not look like you and I, you start to have feelings of, am I the only one having this experience? What is community going to look like for me? How am I going to understand my cultural traditions and practices when I'm not in a space with people that look like me or that may be able to teach me what that looks like? Can you talk to me about what community looks like to you?
Community for me is based upon the principles of love. It's unconditional, it's educational. We need to look at community and create new norms for it, because basically we need to be inclusive of all, and accepting differences and learning similarities and kind of like directing from there. That's how I feel like community should be.
Absolutely. Now let's talk location a little bit. Camp takes place, you said, twice a year, one within the Twin Cities metro and then one within the greater Minnesota area. What's the difference between those two locations, and what are you offering experience-wise?
So we feel like if we go into the greater Minnesota, of course, we're going to reach more families that are further out, away from a more predominantly enriched, Black community, within, like we do having within the Twin Cities. There's going to be a little bit more balance here.
Absolutely.
And so we get the best of both worlds by doing both of those locations. When we do greater Minnesota, we move around. So like last year we did St. Cloud. This year our second camp is in June 9th through 11th in Duluth. And so those
I hope our viewers caught that.
That
She just said when camp is happening, so if you are
Yes,
interested, you want to pay
yes.
attention to those dates.
Yes. So, when I went to Duluth to kind of like scope our hotels and our area where we'd have camp, I can honestly say I didn't see anyone that looked like me. And so bringing that presence there, and when I say bringing that presence, we bring our Umoja community. So we bring the culture enriched entertainment, worship session, presenters, speakers, all of those dynamics. We collaborate with other community organizations from within the Twin Cities and be like, pack up your stuff and come with us for the weekend, so that we can give this experience to those areas. It might be people who might not feel comfortable coming to the Twin Cities, or might be too far away because Minnesota is so big, and so it allows us to move around year by year and to reach more families. My personal goal once I became director was to make sure that someone in every single county within Minnesota knew about Umoja, so that they can pass those resources on to families that needed them.
That's powerful. You all talk about on your website offering support networks for parents. What ways are you guys offering support networks outside of the camp? Once they leave, how are they able to stay connected?
So we have tons of opportunities where we do family functions where parents come together. You'll see the kids separate. They'll go see their friends from camp. The parents will go over here and talk with the other parents. We also have a anti-racist parenting component where parents get to do a class for 6 months. It's virtual right now. It's not in person. We are building within our programming to give opportunities where families get to come together different times during camp and do different activities. We did a family paint and communicate opportunity for Black History Month, and then we're just kind of creating.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? I think that sounds very interesting. Paint and communicate. I think that's
paint
important.
and communicate. We had to come up with a creative title rather than paint and sip,
And that
so paint and communicate. So it gave us that time to talk about the importance of educating the children about Black History Month and how Black History Month is really, like, Black history is not just a month. This is something that is ongoing. And so providing those resources, where can you go? How can you look things up during those times? So communicating about that. And then we got to all paint. We had canvases that said, "My Black is beautiful." And so the families could paint those. We had different other projects that they could create together as a family, take those home. And then, so that was our paint and communicate.
That's wonderful. How has working with Evolve Family Services worked with Umoja Minnesota? Like, what does that partnership look like?
So ultimately, there would be no Umoja without Evolve. I will say that. And I truly feel humbled to be a part of that team, because I think it's the most transparent agency I've ever worked for. That's inclusive of everyone and anyone and differences. And people are accepting of those differences. Like, oh, that's you? Okay, that's me? Okay. Now let's go along down this road and talk about how do you and me come together to do something, or to do the betterment good of our families that we need. And so I love working within our organization. We have so many components that are connected within getting people prepared for foster care and adoption, during the process of that, training and education, the after components, helping children who are aging out of foster care and figuring where do I go from here, and providing them with resources, providing resources for, to go against and educate with informed trauma and things of that sort. So being part of that umbrella is it's just a soothing place to be at. And I feel like we are truly equipping the families that are making that ultimate decision on how they want to grow their family, and then also preparing them with the tools that are necessary to make it a successful transition for them.
It's encouraging as a community member to see an organization like Evolve Family Services taking the lead with some of this work about interracial adoption and kinship care and things like that, because I remember a time not too long ago when parents were looking at their faith-based communities for assistance with these type of just general things, like you said. Where can I find a good barber shop? What type of products am I supposed to buy for my child? Or trying to foster a play date here or there, or a mentor for their child of color. And now to look at all the resources that are being offered through Umoja Minnesota and Evolve Family Services, it seems like this is a step in the right direction, and it's going to be a ripple effect, hopefully, for kids to not only see this work and to see this community, but to be able to offer this to each other. Because as we know, kids talk. And they'll say, you're going to camp. What kind of camp you going to? Where you going? What's happening?
It's so funny to me when people like camp, they're like, are y'all going in the wilderness? And I'm like, it's so funny because Umoja camp is not in the wilderness. A lot of families like, I don't do that.
Yeah. And
our camps are literally at 3, 4, 5-star hotels. And we have great food. We have good fun. We have plush beds and showers, running water, all of that, and no mosquitoes. So I enjoy that component of it because
you said we are indoors, correct?
We're indoors. Yeah, I don't enjoy the wilderness. Is not for me personally. Yeah, no, I don't do that. So I'm really glad about that part because when I saw it at first, I was like, camp. Tell me more about that before I accept this position. So it was really good. Yeah.
Now, you said camp happens twice a year. Let's talk staffing a little bit. How are you guys hiring for camps, for people that are interested in hearing this and saying, I want to volunteer, or I would love to teach, I want to connect with this in some way outside of being a participant?
Yes. So the Emoji team officially is 3. It's a 3-person team. Myself, my program manager, Queen, my education specialist, Shay, and that's it. That's our year-round team that work full-time within that component. We also work within the strategic education component at Evolve Family Services. But we could not do this without our volunteers, without our teachers that are hired in for camp for each event. Our teachers are not certified. They don't have to be certified licensed teachers. They have to be someone who can handle the dynamics of our classroom, our kids that are dealing with trauma, our kids who might not have the most perfect behaviors, to say, and they need to have patience and understanding and, creating their own norms within their classrooms. So we do hire teachers all throughout the year because we have the whole background check component with Department of Human Services, but we do informationals monthly. They're always on our websites or our social media when we're going to be doing them, and so just to bring people in and say this is what camp is, this is what happens. We normally have someone be an assistant teacher the first time they go to camp, and then they are able to go up to be a lead teacher if they'd like to do that the following time. Teachers are paid. So like a lead teacher for that day it's paid $350. An assistant teacher's paid $175. We also have tons of our educated, professional presenters, whether they have gifts and talents like drummers or authors, singers, hair care, services. We do bring in professional like barbers, and we have braiders, and we're looking to have some stylists come in and do some other things. And so there's so many possibilities to add to camp, but those are the like we could not do it without community. We are looking at trying to bring in resources to have all of like the Panhellenic organizations involved. So like maybe sponsoring, like you for this 6 months, it'll be this sorority and this fraternity to come in to give those positive influences. But whether it's choirs, step teams, you name it, we just want to bring in everyone that can help and assist to teach the kids and to give them a piece of culture and community.
And if there is someone listening right now and they want their child to be a part of this, or they would like their family or someone from their church to be a part, can you share with the public how they can actually do that?
The easiest way is to go to our Evolve Family Services, our website. And there are links to Umoja, and there are links to sign up to volunteer. There are links if you want to be a sponsor, you want to be a donor, you want to do gifts for kids, whatever it is, whether it's with us within Umoja or Evolve Family Services, you can go on there. And like I said, that's evolveservices.org. You can email, of course, Umoja Minnesota at evolveservices.org, or myself, T. Thomas, at evolveservices.org. Call our offices in West St. Paul or Stillwater. And that's where we also have social media platforms. We have Facebook, and we have Instagram, and we try to keep those updated with everything that's going on and kind of showcase all of the successes that we have at camp or activities that we're having throughout the year.
That's wonderful. Now, lastly, I just want to have you look in this camera and share with our viewers a call to action or something that you are interested in highlighting so that people are able to hear directly from you about what you all need.
Emoji Minnesota needs you. We need you with your expertise to embark upon this season to pour into the children of Umoja Minnesota throughout the state of Minnesota. Our children come from Minnesota foster care and adoption, and we need to help enrich their opportunities to be connected to community, culture, ethnicity, and positive self-identification in being a Black child. If you are a vendor of culture-specific items, if you would like to present and you have educational components that you could bring to us, if you are a choir, if you are a step team, a drill team, any type of entertainment, and you want to be involved in camp, please let us know. We do have expenses to be able to pay for most of those components as presenters and teachers, and we also need volunteers from different organizations, whether it be with mentoring or holiday festive activities, any of that. If you want to do in-kind donations, any of that, we need you. So if you feel like you have the ability to reach out and to help Umoja and the families at Evolve Family Services, please do so by connecting with us on social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram for Umoja Minnesota, or just emailing us or checking our website at Evolve Family Services. We would love to have you.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Tennille. I wish you all the best, and I appreciate your work not only within the community but also across the greater state of Minnesota.
Thank you so much for having us, and make sure you guys don't forget about camp in June 9th through 11th in Duluth, Minnesota, and registration starts in April. And we're accepting application for teachers and volunteers now.
Thank you for your time. Unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for today. A special thank you to our guest, Tennille Thomas, and her amazing team at Umoja Minnesota and at Evolve Family Services. I hope that something shared today you have found inspirational and or educational. Please pay attention to all of the dates and information that she shared with us today so that you or someone within your network can join the camps. As always, I am your host, Anna Orr. Another episode of Community Connections. I look forward to connecting again with you soon.
Manguddummaan qormaata ta'uu danda'a. Waa'een manguddoomuu haadha keessanii isin yaaddessee beekaa? Waa'een abbaa, abbeeraa, eessuma, adaadaa, akkoo, akaakayyuu fi abaabayyuu keessanii hoo yaada isinitti ta'ee jira? Dhimma manguddummaa fi manguddootaan wal qabatu irratti gaafii kamuu qabaannaan dhaabbanni Senior Linkage Line isin gargaaruudhaaf qophiidha. Dhaabbanni Senior Linkage Line dhaabbata isteeta Minnesota guutuu keessatti dhimma manguddummaa irratti tajaajila kennu yoo ta'u dhaabbilee tola ooltummaa kanneen akka tireelisii fi ejentiiwwan biroo wajjin ta'uudhaan manguddootaaf tajaajila garaagaraa kennuudhaan beekama. Dhaabbata keenya biratti manguddoonni kamuu tajaajila geejjibaa, tajaajila mana jireenyaa fi inshuraansii fayyaa argachuuf hin rakkatan. Gargaarsi dhaabbanni keenya manguddootaaf godhu kana qofaa miti. Nyaata manatti namaaf dhiyeeffamuu fi oolmaa manguddootaa ilaalchisee odeeffannoo barbaachisu manguddootaaf barbaaduun gargaara. Gargaarsi dhaabbanni keenya manguddootaaf taasisu manguddoota biras dabree maatii manguddootaatiif boqonnaa sammuu kenna. Odeeffannoo dabalataatiif 8-333-243 irratti bilbiluu hin dagatinaa.
Dhaabbata Senior Linkage anas na gargaaree jira isinis koottaa itti fayyadama.